Friday has always been known as a brand that makes budget-friendly, beginner-friendly paddles with stylish and fun designs. However, more recently, they started shifting towards the performance and pro-level space, signing PPA Pro Rachel Rohrbacher and APP Pro Kyle Kazuda, and releasing two new Gen 4 full-foam paddles, the Aura and the Aura Pro. The Aura retails for $119 and the Aura Pro retails for $159. With so many great foam options on the market, you're probably wondering, do these paddles actually stand out and offer something different? Or they are just another carbon copy of every other Gen 4 paddle in the market? I'll give you my honest thoughts so you can decide for yourself. Hey guys, it's the new main. Today I'll be reviewing the Aura and Aura Pro, Friday's latest Gen 4 release. I put over 15 hours in the Aura and more than 25 hours in the Aura Pro. And after testing them across drills and real games, I can confidently say they each bring something valuable to the table. They both have a very unique feel. One leans more towards control and forgiveness, while the other adds more power and pop, making it feel more aggressive without becoming too difficult to control. In this review, I'm going to break down how both paddles perform across the board, covering feel, power, control, spin, and stability, and how they translate across different parts of my game. So let's first get into the specs. So starting with the elongated shape of the Aura, the static weight came in about 8.0 ounces, which is light enough to customize with lead tape, but not too light to play in stock form. I measured the swing weight to be about 116, which gives it a nice balance between maneuverability and stability. It feels quick enough at the net, but it still has enough weight in the head to generate consistent depth and power. Twist weight sits around 5.9, which is more on the lower side for an elongated paddle. So you'll most likely want to add a bit of weight to help stabilize it. I'll talk more about that in the weight section. Moving on to the Aura Pro, it has a similar static weight of 7.9 ounces with a slightly lower swing weight sitting at about 115. That makes it a bit faster in hand than most other elongated paddles, which have a stock swing weight that typically ranges from 118 to 121. This lower swing weight gives it a lot of weight customization potential for an elongated paddle. Despite the lower swing weight, it surprisingly has a higher twist weight, which I measured around 6.2, which helps prevent me from adding too much weight and compromising the swing weight. Both paddles use a raw T700 carbon fiber surface. It feels very gritty out of the box. Honestly, for a carbon fiber surface, it's one of the grittiest faces I've felt so far. I think it's grittier than the Loco, the Les Inferno, the Canon, the J6CR, and also the RPM Q2. Now let's talk about the construction and what's actually going on under the hood with these paddles. Both the Aura and Aura Pro use a Gen 4 style full foam construction with an EVP core and an EVA foam around the perimeter. They also feature a patent pending Elastic layer, a rubber band between the two foams, designed to increase stability and expand the overall sweet spot. Now, there are a few key differences between the two that affect feel and performance. The Aura includes cartilage foam near the throat, which helps dampen vibrations and gives it a softer, more muted feel. The Aura Pro, on the other hand, features a thermoformed carbon frame that adds rigidity, stability, and durability. Lastly, the Aura includes a CFC layer that typically adds a bit more pop. However, in play, I didn't really notice that extra pop. So something in the rest of the construction is likely balancing it out, possibly maybe the cartilage foam. Getting into the feel, these two paddles actually feel quite different. The Aura has a soft and more dense feel. It has a bit more dwell time, so the response off the face is slightly slower, which helps make drops and resets easier. If you're used to the Friday Fever 102, it feels very similar, just slightly more dense and muted. The Aura Pro feels a bit stiffer and more hollow. It has a similar feel to the Bread and Butter Loco, but just a tad bit softer. The response is quicker off the face, which gives you a little bit more pop and power, especially on counters and drives. Since the Aura feels more damp and comfortable through contact, you do lose a bit of feedback on impact. So it can be hard to tell whether you're making contact with a sweet spot or not. The Aura Pro, however, feels much closer to a Gen 3 paddle. In fact, it's the closest Gen 3-like feel I've ever experienced from any Gen 4 paddle so far. The feedback is very clear and tells you exactly where you're making contact. If that kind of feedback matters to you, I think you'll love the feel of the Aura Pro. A lot of Gen 4 paddles have a more uniform and muted feel, which can be a turnoff for Gen 3 purists, but personally, this might be my favorite paddle in terms of feel. And after my first hits with it, I connected with it instantly. Power and pop are where these two paddles start to separate a bit. The Aura sits comfortably in the all-court range, very similar to the Friday Fever 102. You get enough power to finish points and generate pace when you swing harder, but it never feels overly jumpy or difficult to control. The Aura Pro adds a bit more punch and explosiveness, with power and pop landing in the low to mid power paddle range. It has slightly more pop at the net and a bit more power on full swings, which makes it easier to put balls away and generate depth without needing to swing as hard. Even with that extra power, it's still very controllable and predictable thanks to its linear power curve. I was never surprised by balls sailing long, and it took me less time to dial in than most paddles. The pop was easier for me to adjust to since it's slightly lower than paddles like the Boomstick, the Loco, Inferno, and the Cannon. The sweet spot on both paddles are large. I would say larger than most elongated paddles I've played with. On the Aura, I didn't notice any noticeable dead spots, and the pop felt very consistent across the entire face. The Aura Pro also has a strong sweet spot, but in stock form, the pop varies slightly depending on where you make contact. Similar to many Gen 3 paddles, the bottom near the throat and the very top of the paddle have a noticeable drop off compared to the sweet spot, which sits slightly above center. I was able to smooth out that inconsistency by adding weight to the throat and at the 4, 8 o'clock positions here. Overall, both paddles have great sweet spots, with the Aura edging it out slightly. They're a bit smaller than the Boomstick, Loco, and Inferno, but not enough to feel like you're sacrificing your counters or resets. Spin generation is excellent on the Aura, and honestly pretty absurd on the Aura Pro. The gritty face on the Aura Pro gives you plenty of bite on the ball, and shaping shots feels very natural. The lower controllable pop on both paddles also helps shaping shots, since the ball doesn't exit the face as quickly and stays on the paddle face a bit longer. I especially noticed this in transition on topspin roll drops, as well as on volley rolls and topspin dinks at the kitchen. The Aura Pro was the only paddle where I actually hit a topspin drop winner cross court, something I don't think I could do with most other paddles. I didn't expect this level of spin output, but it really showed in my games. Let's move into the playability section and see how these paddles perform in real gameplay. At the kitchen, both paddles are very intuitive and easy to dink with. With its more pleasant and softer feel and slightly lower pop, it's very easy to keep dinks low and controlled. It feels great and stays extremely consistent during extended dink rallies. The Aura Pro still handles the soft game well and is a bit more pop, but the slightly firmer and more responsive feel allows for more precise placement. I found myself able to place dinks anywhere I wanted and was practically taping and painting the lines more often than I expected. Even with the added pop, I really pop the balls up, which I think comes down to the feel. It makes it easy to connect with the touch and determine how much power you're putting into each shot. If your goal is consistency with your dinks, the Aura will suit you well. But if you're looking to be more offensive with superior placement, the Aura Pro will be the better option. Drops are very easy with both paddles, with the Aura being slightly easier and more consistent due to its lower pop and power. However, the Aura Pro brings a level of aggression on drops that I haven't seen in many paddles. My roll drops were especially dangerous with the Pro because of the amount of shape and dip I could generate. The pop is high enough to give the ball enough margin to help clear the net, while still being low enough to help you swing faster and really generate that heavy topspin. The pop is really in that perfect sweet spot range, at least for me. Overall, both paddles perform extremely well on drops, and Aura Pro stands out as one of the most offensive options available. For resets, the Aura feels especially forgiving. Softer feel and extra dwell help absorb pace and make it easier to guide the ball back in the kitchen. The Aura Pro still resets well, but because the face is slightly firmer, you'll need slightly softer hands to keep the ball from popping up too high. In stock form, there's a small dead spot near the bottom of the throat where the ball can unexpectedly die, and I could feel a bit of twisting on contact. But after adding weight though, the paddle stabilized significantly, helped mitigate that dead spot, and adds a bit more pop in this area. Since the response is quicker off the face, I felt like I got better feedback and could make adjustments more easily, especially when I was under pressure or slightly out of position. Overall, if resets are a big part of your game, the Aura definitely has the edge here. But the Aura Pro is still very usable, especially once you add a bit of weight to stabilize it. On drives, the Aura Pro clearly has the edge. A combination of spin and easy power makes it pretty effortless to hit heavy, penetrating drives. I didn't feel like I had to swing out of my shoes to generate pace, and the ball still had a lot of depth and shape. Even with that power, I still felt in control. I was able to direct my drives pretty easily and didn't feel like I was spraying balls wide, like I sometimes do with paddles like the Loco Inferno when I mistime it slightly. The Aura still drives well, but it feels more controlled and a bit less explosives. You need to generate more of your own pace, but the trade-off is consistency. If you're someone who likes to drive thirds a lot and play aggressive off the bounce, the Pro will feel a lot more natural to you. At the kitchen, both paddles are solid, but they do feel a bit different. The Aura has enough pop to stay competitive in hand battles, but it still leans more controlled. It's forgiving, and I didn't feel like I was overhitting balls even when things sped up. The Aura Pro is definitely more offensive out there. The higher pop makes it easier to finish points and be aggressive in hands battles. But there's also a bit more risk if your timing is off. On flicks and quick counters, the Pro just feels a bit more dangerous. It's easier to generate that quick burst of speed and put pressure on your opponent. Putaways were also noticeably easier with the Pro. When you swing harder, extra power really kicks in and helps you end points much faster. As I said before, in stock form, I did feel a bit of twisting on both paddles during fast exchanges, but adding weight to both helped a lot with stability. Also, since the Aura Pro is slightly faster in hand, it gave me a bit of edge in hand battles. At times, it almost felt like I was swinging a hybrid paddle with elongated power and pop. But let's talk about the weight setups on both the Aura and Aura Pro here. Starting with the Aura, I had about 4 inches of half gram per inch lead tape, starting about an inch above the throat, ending in around the 4 and 8 positions. So this helped boost the twist weight up a bit, while still minimizing the amount of swing weight added. So the numbers that I ran after adding this lead tape, where the twist weight ended up being about 6.4 and the swing weight was about 120. And then moving on to the Aura Pro, as you can see here, I have these are 2 strips of half gram per inch, which equals basically 1 gram per inch tape. Starting from the throat, 4 inches, ending at the 4 and 8 o'clock positions here. And then I also added another half gram per inch, about 3 inches of it at the 3 and 9 positions. So I first started with this lead tape, and then I slapped this one on after because I felt like the paddle was still twisting a little too much and the dead spot here was more noticeable. But once I added these weights on the 3 and 9, dead spot was a lot less of a problem. And then when I ran the numbers through with this one, the twist weight came out being about 6.6, which is really good. And the swing weight was only 121. Yeah, it didn't really make it much heavier to swing, but it also made it really boosted up the twist weight. And you can't really see here, but I added about 9 grams of lead tape within the handle here to really kind of move the balance point down and make the paddle feel overall very light, which doesn't really affect the swing weight at all, but it does kind of give you that feeling of, a headlight paddle. So now let's move on to who this paddle is for. The Aura is for any all-court or control players who want easy control and forgiveness. Also for players who prioritize consistency in the soft game, and also any budget-minded players who want strong performance for the price. And lastly, anyone who prefers a more softer and muted feel. On the other hand, the Aura Pro is for players who want something more offensive than the Aura or any all-court paddle without going full power or as high power as a Boomstick or Inferno or Loco. It's also for players who like to drive thirds and play aggressively, and anyone who prefers stiff and hollow feel and value feedback and wants something that feels more like a Gen 3. And lastly, it's for players who are from the intermediate to advanced players who really can control the added pop and power that this paddle provides. So moving into my final thoughts. The Aura leans more towards a softer feel, more control, and strong forgiveness. It's easier to use overall and feels very consistent, especially in the soft game. The Aura Pro adds that extra layer of power, pop, and feedback, which makes it feel more aggressive, but also more controlled. It just requires a bit more skill to fully take advantage of it. Neither paddle really goes to extremes, but both feel very balanced. And honestly, I think that's what wins games. At these price points, they're also competing with paddles that are way more expensive, especially the Aura Pro, which can hang with paddles like the Loco, Inferno, Boomstick, and J6CR. At $119 and $159, after code new main, it's honestly hard to go wrong with either. Personally, I'm going to keep maining the Aura Pro for now. It just fits my playstyle really well, and I felt comfortable with it pretty quickly, which doesn't always happen for me. If you found this review helpful, make sure to like and subscribe for more in-depth paddle comparisons and reviews. If you're interested in either of these paddles, I'll have links down in the description, and you can use my code to get a discount. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.